Hello, everyone, once again, and welcome back to another episode of Out in the Grapes, RT Talk. I am Michael Poole, and I am going to do an episode that's a little bit different than maybe some previous episodes that I've done, in that I'm not going to cover several topics related to Rooster Teeth this week, but I am going to cover just one. And typically I go through, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, however many stories. But these last 2 weeks have been, for the most part, it's most of what I was planning on talking about would have just been, maybe content and how I feel like certain content is definitely being helped by being in studio and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like I've also been going on a pretty long time about some of like the lead off topics. So I figured I'm just going to focus this episode on this main topic and then just kind of see how this goes. And who knows? But if you have clicked on this video, you already know what I'll be talking about. But obviously, what I'm going to be talking about is the problems that have come up in this past, I believe it's the past week, about Express VPN. Now, in general, and I'm going to get into everything there is with the Express VPN kind of controversy going on. But I would say there's also, it's not new, but there is a precedent for people kind of having issues with some of Rooster Teeth's sponsors. Notably, I would say, I think Hims was one that people had a lot of issue with right out of the gate, and I think Upstart is another one that people have a problem with. Personally, I'm when it comes to ads, I mainly skip them anyway. So when it comes to how good a service is versus, or maybe how ethical a service is, I honestly don't even know who advertises on most of the podcasts I listen to because I just go right over them anyway. But it is something that it definitely upsets people and they have very strong opinions about. This one, however, I felt like warranted a little bit more of a story. There's a little bit more to talk about. For one, because of the depth of what's happening at Express VPN, but also because Express VPN and Rooster Teeth through the pandemic have been, tightly together. It's like probably the primary sponsor that got them through the pandemic. It's every video for Achievement Hunter and everything would open with this video is brought to you by ExpressVPN, and you don't let hackers get, all that kind of stuff, whatever their sales pitch is. So I am going to go into now kind of what's happening at ExpressVPN. And just right off the bat, and then if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be seeing this right now. But you can see that this is a story that has been reported on by several different outlets. It's Gizmodo, Reuters, ZDNet, Tech Radar, Vice, PC Mag. It goes on and on for the companies that have written stories, or why they are companies, but you know what I mean, the outlets that have written these stories. So this isn't like a rumor. This isn't something that's some website that no one's ever heard of is just talking about. This is kind of this is a real thing. So I'm just going to reference the Gizmodo article just for sake of ease. I looked at, I actually found this through the ZDNet article, but from what I can see, it's basically the same information anyway. So I'm going to reference this one, and I'll put a link to this article in the description for the YouTube video and on the podcast side too. So that way, if you want to read the whole thing, then you can go and you can do that. I'm going to be reading chunks of this because it's all very relevant information. And but I will be skipping over different parts of it. So pretty much to boil it down to just, to real quick to say what the initial problems are, is that ExpressVPN was purchased by a company that apparently has a very, I would say at the minimum, shady past and concerning past. And they also, the CIO, the Chief Information Officer at ExpressVPN, also has a concerning past. So that is sort of the Spark Notes version of what's going on, but here's the actual details. So the first paragraph of the article is just talking about ExpressVPN in general, and how it's hands down the best VPN, all that kind of stuff. Then it continues with, however, all of this has been called into question following the revelation that ExpressVPN Chief Information Officer Daniel, I'm going to say Garrick. I don't actually know how to say his name, but it's spelled Gericke. But I'm going to say Garrick. That's probably wrong, but I'm just going to do what I can with the education I was given. So, Chief Information Officer Daniel Garrick previously worked as a hacker for hire at Dark Matter, a cybersecurity firm based in the United Arab Emirates. Between 2016 and 2019, Garrick helped to hack systems and devices all over the world as part of Project Raven, a secretive operation designed to help the UAE monarchy track and surveil critics of its regime, including activists, journalists, and some individuals based in the U.S. Garrick and 2 other former U.S. intelligence operatives recently faced federal charges for their involvement in Raven, but managed to reach deferred prosecution agreements with the government, allowing them to pay fines and avoid jail time, while also agreeing to certain terms. So, obviously, a huge problem to have someone in that position with that sort of history behind them. I think... and then I'll get into ExpressVPN's response to this basically in a second, and this is kind of addressed somewhat in there. Obviously, there's part of that where it makes sense that you'd want to bring on someone, but I would say the fact that they are in that position is a real concern, if nothing else. But they essentially, or I guess initially said that they knew key facts about his prior employment when they hired him, and were pretty much fine with it, I guess, is how this article puts it. But their actual more detailed response is, some may ask, how could we willingly invite someone with Daniel's past into our midst? For us, the answer is clear. We are protecting our customers. To do that job effectively, to do it as we believe better than anyone else in our industry, requires harnessing all the firepower of our adversaries. The best goalkeepers are the ones trained by the best strikers. Someone steeped and seasoned in offense, as Daniel is, can offer insights into defense that are difficult, if not impossible, to come by elsewhere. That's why there is a well-established precedent of companies in cybersecurity hiring talent from military or intelligence backgrounds. I personally do not disagree with that statement. I do think that if you want to know, or if you're trying to protect people against attacks, the best thing you can do is find someone who attacks those systems and the loopholes and the targets that they are going after in order to exploit those systems. So that entirely makes sense to me. The only part that I feel like is not addressed in that statement is what I said right before I read it, which is he's a chief information officer. So that's not something that is, it's not just like someone that's a consultant for them, or that they bring in to hire for this position. Like a chief information officer is up there in a company. And, I understand that you're going to want to put someone in charge of your computer software, all that stuff, who knows their stuff, knows their equipment. But man, it just seems like a sketchy thing to do. Now, if that was the only thing, I don't know. Personally, I don't know that this would have been a lot of a story. I don't know how much we would have really even covered it on here. But with the next part of it, they kind of start going hand in hand, and then it becomes more of a concern about, okay, what is actually happening at ExpressVPN? So the next actual, it's not the sequel, but the next step of this is that, as the article continues, other recent events have caused some to question ExpressVPN's direction. The company was recently purchased by Cape Technologies, an Israeli technology firm with a controversial past. Formerly known as Crossrider, the company was renamed in 2018 after it got a little too much publicity for, as CNET recently put it, being the notorious creator of some pernicious data-huffing adware. Since then, it has been on an apparent rebranding effort accompanied by a privacy product buying spree. In recent years, the firm has procured the VPNs CyberGhost, ZenMate, and private internet access, and purchased ExpressVPN for $936 million earlier this month. So, again, huge red flag. because this, and my initial kind of reaction to reading that was, it almost sounds like they're doing exactly what ExpressVPN said they were doing by hiring Garrick, or whatever, Gurky, whatever, however you say his name, because it almost seems like they were developing these adware and these malicious pieces of software, and now they're buying up all these VPNs, which is sort of, it's not it's not like a firewall that would stop adware entirely, but it's definitely something they have to compete with, like as they're making harmful software. So it almost feels like maybe they were doing the same thing where they're acquiring these VPN companies to kind of see how they work and to use them to get around securities almost. So that part of it is really concerning. Like, more so than the CIO having a dicey past, it's being purchased by this mega company that has been known to create harmful things for people's computers is a problem. It's a big problem. This is just kind of continuing on with this article. It just says some key figures associated with Cape have also raised eyebrows. A majority share of the company is owned by Teddy Sagi, maybe? Again, don't know if I'm saying that name right, but an Israeli billionaire who, in the 1990s, pled guilty to charges related to bribery and market manipulation and subsequently spent a short stint behind bars. Businesses connected to Sagi were also unearthed in the Panama Papers, the multi-terabyte leak which showed the intricate network of shell companies and tax havens used by world leaders and businesses. The company's previous CEO and co-founder, Kobe, I'm not even going to try, is also an Israeli ex-intelligence officer who served in Unit 8200, the notorious cyber, read hacking, wing of the Israeli Defense Forces, last name I'm not going to attempt, left the company in 2016. So, that's like a 1-2 punch. Like, this information comes out about the CIO having worked on this, was it Project Raven, and being involved in actively attacking and essentially destroying the devices of people worldwide, followed by being purchased by a company that's it's not, I guess they're not on par, because you're talking about like spying and everything versus malware or adware, and it's all the, I don't even know what else. What do they say? It was a pretty pernicious data huffing adware. I've wanted to get a VPN just to add more security to our internet here at my house, and it was something that not necessarily I wasn't, I'm concerned about if these people have Israeli spy intelligence backgrounds that are running this, but it was something that concerned me with looking for a VPN and knowing which one was actually a good one, because it's it's like any other piece of information where when you're trying to find a top 10 lists on something and you're trying to see like what's the best X, Y, or Z, you're going to get a lot of lists that are going to have, maybe there'll be some crossover, but there's obviously, it's all opinion based. It's all subjective. So the lists are going to vary, and it's hard to know which one's a better one. And then you get into the weird territory where maybe some companies have a side deal with this VPN, so then they'll throw it in their list or whatever. And things get dicey when you're trying to research things. You can get really lost in the weeds. But the thing that concerned me was that looking for it is, I was like, well, you're putting a lot of trust in this separate company to then protect your information. And it's like anything else, like, with the way that like Facebook or any other like social media or just websites in general collect your data and they resell the data. Just having someone else that's kind of, they don't have like their hands in the pot necessarily, but they have a huge part in protecting you and is like the shield around your internet home in a way. So it was sort of like I essentially, I guess to boil it down, is I just didn't want to make a decision to get a certain VPN and then find out that, oh, no, these are pretty bad, scummy people, and now all the data that we've been putting out there could have just been getting like, essentially scraping the data and just collecting it and everything else. So I was always concerned with like that type of stuff. Now, shifting gears, but shifting gears and actually talking about how this relates, I guess not how it relates to Rooster Teeth, but getting back to the Rooster Teeth side of the story. I don't know because this the subreddit, and I mean just people in general who will post about Rooster Teeth and have issues with them. You know, there's some people that maybe it's a content thing that they're unhappy with or whatever, but particularly when it comes to these ads, people get really like passionate about how they feel about certain ads. But one thing I thought was kind of odd is some of the reactions that I saw to specifically this, but there was another one too. I forget. I was on a pod. I think it was on Black Box Down or something. But there is like some of the reactions are people like want them to Rooster Teeth to go out and then like immediately pull down everything. It seems like. So I don't know if we'll see Rooster Teeth kind of cut ties with Express VPN. Obviously ExpressVPN, it was a big help during the pandemic when everyone had to move to working from home, and obviously content suffered, and it's something that has really impacted them on the way it's impacted a lot of people. But I don't know. I didn't fall into the camp of people who thought that immediately, like the next video that had an ExpressVPN sponsorship on it was just going to be pulled. I would not be surprised if maybe the next, if they go on for a while using ExpressVPN as a sponsor, and then eventually they'll take it down. To be completely honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they did nothing and they just continued using them as a sponsor. I don't know how on their radar this stuff is. I found it through a post on the subreddit, but if it came down to it, and if I had to basically answer the question, I think it'd be in their best interest to no longer work with ExpressVPN. Thank you for all that you've done, but this is kind of there's too many red flags. I mean, you can't even see the sky anymore. So maybe it's time to walk away and just shake hands and say thanks, but we're out. How likely it is a different story, but that personally, that's where I think, or that's what I think they should do. So, as I tend to say a lot, only time will tell, but I know there has been people talking about, I don't know how big the post got, but I know there's people been talking about this, and people that have made their opinions known and that want to also want them to cut ties. And like I said, for some reason people they really thought it was going to happen immediately. I feel like this kind of stuff happens slow all the time. But yeah, I know when it comes to ads, I have a feeling it just has to be difficult to be able to, especially now that with them being under the Warner Media umbrella, and who knows what those agreements are, and if they have probably their own ad sales department and everything else. But I'm sure it has to be difficult going through and vetting all the different sponsors that are out there now for podcasts. I mean, there was a time where I feel like there was like 5 of them, and then they were on every single podcast. And to a degree that happens, it seems like it happens in waves now. But it has to be really difficult just to vet and make sure that every company you're using is actually good people or is completely safe, because it happens a lot where there's a company that comes out and then things are revealed, or business practices are revealed, or what have you. So we'll see what they end up doing. Again, I don't know if this is on their radar or not, but I would hope that they would, stop advertising ExpressVPN. Just, it's, maybe this is just how things are done, and maybe there's a lot of people that are just ignorant of how these VPN companies work. But knowing, kind of getting a peek behind the curtain and seeing it, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like to use their service, well, I wouldn't, but to use their service, I would not feel at ease using ExpressVPN anymore. So we shall see. We shall see what happens with ExpressVPN. To be honest, if they just got purchased, who knows? Once you're purchased, you can go in any direction. But that's it for this. This week, or this 2-week episode. As always, I look forward to comments, and I encourage people to leave comments and let me know what you think about ExpressVPN and what this all means, and if you think that Rooster Teeth should cut ties with them. But we are still a little bit out from Out in the Grapes coming back, but I'll be back in another 2 weeks for another episode of RT Talk. I keep spitting. I hope that's not getting picked up on camera. And pretty soon we'll be coming back with Out in the Grapes. and our triumphant return. So join us then. But until then, enjoy your week. Be safe, have fun, do all those types of things. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. All those things. Thank you. And goodbye.